Hello! Welcome to the second part of the Python Bootcamp, Data Analysis for Beginners. We would like to share some feedback with you. Thank you so much for those who fill in the form. So let's discuss briefly about terminal, delays, and the new way to do exercises with pauses today. So the first thing is terminal. We know that there are different people with different backgrounds. And what we want to say, if you want to pursue a career of Python developer in the future, the terminal knowledge is a must. If you just want to play with it and forget, maybe you don't need the terminal. Okay, the next is it's a delays. We know that this is near real-time stream. It means that when you ask questions, we have approximately 1-2 minutes delay. We wish we could somehow to bridge this gap, but we have it. And the next is, so today's session will be with some stops for exercises. We really want you to practice alone. Okay, now I will switch for Demi, and she will as well add some information for you. Okay, Demi, welcome. Mike, your microphone.
Hi, there we are. Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited. I hope you're excited as well. So as we already got introduced by Ilona, why we need to use the terminal. I hope you read the material that we gave you, and also that you copied your folders, because we are going to teach you how to clone the repository that we just updated, and also that you can get that newest information to your computer. So at this moment, please take your time. If you didn't copy the folder of your own work yet, copy it to another folder. So make, for example, PyLadies Amsterdam Bootcamp copy, and then copy all the files that you have there to that other folder, so the files that you worked in, you copy to the other folder. I can briefly make an example for you. So for example, if I go to my documents and I go to PyLadies, I will make a new folder here, and I call it Bootcamp copy. I like to do this. And then I would copy all the Bootcamp that I have here. So Command C or equivalent on your computer. So copy, so go in here to the lessons. If you did something here in week 1, copy this one. Where's the copy? I don't know where to copy. Oh, here's the copy. So copy it and put it to your Bootcamp here. So then you make sure that you save that one if you typed in there something. Okay, now we're going to teach you some Git here. So wait a second.
Demi, 1 second. Should I switch to a screen now?
Ah, yeah.
Just a moment. I will share your screen now, and as well, let's do some calibration first, because we want to make sure that everybody see it.
Okay.
So increase it for now. Zoom it, please.
This the terminal, yes. Okay. Then once again, what I showed you is actually go to.
I think it's still too small. Can you make it larger? Is it what last time?
Oh, wait.
I mean the terminal. Thanks.
I hope this is good enough. So what I just showed here in your folder, in your file system, you go, for example, to Documents and you make a new folder, Bootcamp copy. You go to the bootcamp that you have done, so the homework or the lessons, and maybe you type something in your notebook. You copy this one, go to copy, and copy it in the bootcamp copy before we move on. So paste item, and then you see it here. That's because we're going to you're going to overwrite at the moment the stuff that you have on your computer, because we're going to use git pull to get the new latest version on what we have on the GitHub. So if I do want to check what is happening, I use Git Status. Git Status will show me what the remote directory or the remote repository, if it was updated, yes or no, and if I need to get extra files. So if you do Git Status and you're initialized with the remote repository, you can find your branches up to date, for example, with the origin master, or it's not, and then you need to git pull the newest information. If you do git pull, you get the newest information. I already have it, so I actually don't need it. So I'm going to start my Jupyter notebook again. I'm already in the right directory. Here I'm going to start it, Jupyter notebook. We're going to lessons, week 2. And like we said, we already did some small recap. Once again, it is very important to be able to use the terminal if you want to pursue a career as a Python developer. If you just want to be a data analyst, you probably don't need to know directly how you use the terminal at this point. But I will assure you it is helpful in your career when you communicate with developers to kind of know what the terminal does. So once you have your free time, get along a bit with it. It's nice. The agenda for today. Today we are going to cover for loops, conditional execution. Sorry for my spelling mistakes, guys. I'm super dyslexic, so don't mind me if you see spelling mistakes. I will do better next time. Functions and built-in functions. We are going to cover methods, and we'll teach you how to read in text files. In the coming lessons, so in the 3rd and the 4th lessons, we dive into pandas, and in the 3rd lesson, pandas, will teach you how to read in Excel files and how to manipulate them, work with dictionaries. And then in the last lesson, we dive a bit deeper into how to manipulate these data frames that you call, it's kind of similar to an Excel table. So you will work with data frames to manipulate your CSV data or your Excel data that you looked out for in this assignment. And because we already started a bit later, we are not going to cover the assignments that you did. If you have questions about that, you could ask them to your mentors. We saw a lot of questions coming in already, but there can be more. So if you have questions, really ask them, and the mentors will help you, because we're not going to cover them in this live stream. That would take too much time. And we are having a pretty hard day forward, as you can see in the agenda. And I hope you bear with me. We are going to do a recap on what we already did last week. So just to recap what a list is and how to loop over it, and why you actually need to use for loops. So once again, this is how you define a color list or a list. And this is a list with colors. And here you can see how I comment this out. So you saw that I did this, right? So 2 at the same time. How do I do that? I use on my Mac, maybe Elena can tell how it works on Windows, but it is comment and then the forward space. Comment forward space, that's how you comment out and in a Mac shortcut there.
On Windows, instead of comment, you use control.
Control.
Yeah, space. It's normal slash or backslash? Normal slash?
Mine is a forward slash.
Yeah, so forward slash. Yeah, so it's control and forward slash.
Okay. This is how you index. So we're once again, Python starts with the 0 index. So this will print the 3rd item up till the 5th item. Blue and yellow. Sorry, the 4th item. My bad. And obviously this one will print the last. If we do it like this, so I'm going to remove that one. I want to show you something as well. If we are printing this one, you print the last item of the list, the purple, like you can see here, and that is a different one because we didn't use print. In all your Python output, you should use print to debug your code. Now I'm assigning pink to the last item in the list. So purple is going to be pink now. Let's print out the color list. See? Now, why are we using for loops again? For loops are very handy if you need to do multiple things at this multiple times. So you want to add an exclamation mark to every item in a list, or you need to print out a lot of time things, or you need to change the second letter of every word, or you need to remove the dots or the exclamation marks from your strings in every sentence. All those types of things you can actually do with for loops. You can use for loops on lists, but also strings, like I explained. So for a letter in a word, we print a letter. And once again, it doesn't really matter what I put here. I could put X. It still works. Here, I add an exclamation mark to the color in the list, and it will print the same thing. So now you can tell us why you use for loops. But this is like already you see here, that's a lot of printing. And yeah, of course, you can copy paste that, but I don't like copy pasting. And remember, programmers are very lazy people. They don't like to do things multiple times, so they use for loops. I can do this, or I can use a for loop. It's way less code. So here we have like 8 lines of code, and here we only have 2 lines of code. And we can actually change the range to 20, 100. I don't really do that to my, don't want to do that to my computer, but yeah, now it's printing a lot of times. So what does range actually means? Like you see here, I'm printing up to 30 times. This is a lot of typing. So that is actually what range does. Range, range is telling the computer in this particular stuff. So from 0 to 30, print this 30 times. This is actually a tuple. You can also use it in this way. So for example, you want to print something 20 times or 50 times, it doesn't really matter. But you want to actually do something with it, not only printing the same thing, but use the loops. So the loop number in a range of 50 times, print it up to 50 times, and like Python is starting with 0, so it will start with 0. You will not get 50, but you will get 49. So it actually is like a list from 0 to 49, 50 items. That was about a list, and that is the recap of the list. Take this a bit slower in because it can be hard to understand the range. So always remember that if we work with ranges, it is always this number minus 1 because you start at 0. Conditional execution, booleans and if-else. This is your start of really programming. If you do not know how to use if-else statements, so if I walk to the park, I do not sit on my couch. That is actually like conditional execution. So if I do something, I cannot do something else. And that's actually how it works with code as well. So if something is true, then the other something is false. So if my state is this, so for example, at this moment I'm in the park. So my status is, for example, equal to, I'm going to show you a bit here. Oh. So if my status park, if I'm not at my couch, for example, so I'm not home. So if status, it will not give me something, but if status is park, is means if something is the same thing. Always have to use this one. Print yes, for example. Yes. But if I change my status to couch, what will it print? Guess what? Will not print anything because my status is not couch. That is something that you have to keep in mind if you do programming. If you assign a status or you assign a variable, then and you want to check if it's the same thing as something else, and it's not, it will return true or false. That is basically how Booleans work. So if only something can be true, and it will execute it as true or otherwise as false. And you're going to see this in a variable assignment here. So we have the number 1, which is, if we print the number, it is 1. And once again here, the number is checking if something is equal to. So if I ask the computer, is the number equal to 1, which I stated here, it says true. But if I ask the computer, is it equal to 2, it will return false. That's the example I gave with the couch and the park as well. This way, we check if something is not equal to. So now my number is 2. When the number is 1. And if I use 2 times, I will check if something is equal. So it's very good to be aware of the difference between the 1 is and the 2 is. The 1 is variable assignment, and the 2 times is check if something is equal to. So am I in the park? No, my status was at the couch. So then the status is park would be false because I was at the couch, because I gave my variable the assignment that I was at the couch. And once again, here in numbers, so my number is 2. So here, for example, status is couch. And then if I check if I'm in the park, oh, it will assign true because I'm not in the park. This is asking, am I not in the park? No, I'm not in the park. If I change it to is, it will return false because my status is at the couch. You can also use some functions to check if something is false or true. And this is actually what you do with how you use booleans to check your execution, and how you use booleans, so true and false, to check your execution, so conditional execution. It is a bit hard to grasp, and I believe it's even harder to explain. I'm doing my best. But take some time to really go over this because it's a hard topic. But I believe if we are doing this one, we're skipping this one and this one for now, it may be a bit more, it will say something to you. So for example, we assign to the variable Wednesday. So today is Wednesday, right? Today is Wednesday. And we ask the computer if today is Wednesday, so if the variable is equal to, because is means equal to Wednesday, we print, I have Python class. If it's not Wednesday, we print, I make homework. Guess what this will print? Because today is Wednesday, so I have Python class. It needs to be exactly the same if you use this one. So for example, if I do a lowercase, it will return, I make homework, because it's not equal to Wednesday anymore. Okay, this, try it for yourself. And don't forget, every time you use if or a for loop, you always need a double column or not semicolon, a column. I think that's the big name. If you forget this, Python will complain to you. Let us show how it will complain. Uh-oh, we made a syntax error. Syntax error, remember, a syntax error is something that the computer cannot read. So we could probably read this, but the computer is very strict on this. So it says syntax error, I missed something. I missed a semicolon, I missed a dot, I missed a bracket. So we missed this one. Now, if we use tomorrow, because of Python Notebook, it will remember that you have today. But if I will restart my kernel, I'm going to restart it. Now I don't have the variable today anymore. It will complain about that they don't have that today is not defined. So that is actually a name error. But if I change this one again to today, sorry, to tomorrow, then it will tell me, guess what? I have Python class. That is actually the if-else execution. But what if I do this? Then it's becoming, I have homework. I made homework because tomorrow is not equal. I asked the computer if tomorrow is not equal. if tomorrow is not to Wednesday, then I print I have Python class. But because it is equal to Wednesday, it prints I make homework. So that's the different way around. Okay, we're going to do an exercise ourselves because this is a pretty hard concept and we want you to ask a question if you need to. So the exercise here is make a variable and tell that today, make that a variable today. And today is a rainy day. So you can guess what you have to assign to today. And normally if it's rainy, you stay inside. But if it's not rainy, you go outside. What do you do today? So make your exercise and then we continue to a second exercise. Okay, because we cannot really wait for too long, we're going to evaluate this exercise. And if this didn't work out for you, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you how you should have solved it. And we also have exercises after the class. So, okay, so today is a rainy day. That actually means define a variable that is called today. This is the definition of a variable, right? Rainy. Normally it is raining and you stay in. If today is equal to this is actually what was expected from you. Please give us feedback if this was not clear. But I hope that you see that this was expected. So you needed to write an evaluation. So that is the is. And it needed to be rainy or not rainy. Stay in. This is the most easy one. Actually, there was asked something else too. If it's not rainy, you go outside. You could do it this way, else. Don't forget the double points. I'm going to teach you another trick. So this is actually very straightforward if you would write it out this way. But in nice code, you actually would not use this so much. So what you also can use is this one. So instead of this, you could also use this. Use this or this. Now nothing is coming, so you make an error. Now this is a double not. So once again, if today is rainy, I stay in. Else, print, I go out. So today is not raining, it's nothing actually. You go out. That is the basic if else, so I hope you got that. Now, to peek ahead a bit forward, remember that we could give the a variable, we could assign a string to a variable, and we can actually count the length of the string with length. So my name is Dami. Oh, I forgot one. And with length, you can count the occurrences of the items in the string. That's 4 times. 1 letter, 2 letter, 3, and 4. Okay. Now I'm actually, I want to know if I have a long name. So I make a variable, is long name, and I tell the variable I have a long name if the amount of letters in the string is more than 4. So I have a long name if my name is longer than 4 letters, or 5, or 7, whatever. That's a long name. And now I want to print the is a long name variable. And it gives me false because my name is shorter.
Demi, we have 2 questions regarding the exercises. They are both valid for the first and for the second one. So the first question is, can we use not equal with if statement? And I think you show it already.
Yeah, so you can use that, this one. So if today is not raining, you stay in. So I go out. Yes, you could use if not. So this, I'm going to show you here. This means it's not equal to, and you can indeed use it. So today is rainy. If today is not rainy, then I print I stay in. If today is rainy, that is actually what it's saying, I print is go out, if it is out. So if I leave this empty, now today is actually nothing. So this will, today is not equal to rainy, or it's not equal to 1, or it's not equal to 2, but it's not an empty string. So then it will print, I will stay in. What was the other question?
The other question was, how come we don't need equal in isLon name? Is len my name more than 4? We don't need. Just a second. So in long. Oh, so
that's the next one.
The question is about 14, about the cell 14.
Yeah, we'll go over that later. I just want to show you, if you don't get it with a string, let's make a number. Today is 1. If today is not equal to 1, then I print a saying, or is equal to 1. So today is 1. I ask the computer if today is not equal to 1, print is equal to 1. If it is equal to 1, print is not. So it will print is not. If I use this one, this will actually says it is equal to 1, and this will actually ask for it is not. So it's the other way around. The next one is here. So I printed the length of my name. My name is 4 letters. Can also do my name is 6, and I can ask the computer, is my name bigger than 4? Yes, my name is bigger than 4. Is the number be easier to grasp? Bigger than 4 or smaller than 4? Number. It is false. That's how you evaluate yes and no and true and false. Okay, well, then an exercise for you. Check if your name is a long name. And we consider a long name as longer than 6. Let's say a long name is my name, bigger than 6 characters, for example. If this is the case, sorry, 5, I said 5. Greater or equal to 5, if your name is longer than 5 letters, then you should print, my name is a long name.
We just got an extra question. It's really good. The question is, can we use if statement more than one condition?
Yes, we can. Somebody is already going way forward, but we actually can. So maybe with a name. So my name, my favorite number. I don't really have one. I'm just really making up one, and that's terribly hard. 4? Everybody says 4, right? My favorite number is 4. If my favorite number let's say bigger than 5, 8, print. Whoa, that's high. I don't know, I'm just making this up, guys. If you want to do multiple conditions, in Python you can use elif. My favorite number that was a top for everybody that likes shortcuts. My favorite number is between 5 and 8, let's say. So I use smaller than, bigger than 5. My favorite number should be bigger than 5. And that is an extra condition that you can use, or maybe this makes it too difficult. And if my favorite number is 5, that is the question that you ask, I print also high and lower. And we have to make sure that my favorite number is lower than 8, because it otherwise will always print this one. Print also high, and then else print low. I misspelled here. My favorite. So what you actually see here is I ask the computer, okay, so if my favorite number is bigger than 8, I print that is high. At this point, because my number is 4, I will say, okay, no, I cannot execute this. I cannot do the print statement. So I'm going to the next one. I'm going to, is my favorite number bigger than 5? And is my favorite number smaller than 8? Oh, actually, that's also not the case. So then I'm going to the last one, and that is low. I can use as much elif statements if I want. Say bigger than 4, for example. It doesn't really work, but you get the point. You can use as much elif statements if you want, as long as you end with else. We always have to use else, because otherwise it will not make your code, like, you will not catch the error if you need to. Don't forget the else. Okay. I hope that answered the question. This looks maybe a bit hard for people that were here. So at the moment, I can use multiple statements. I use the if. You learned how to use the else. So I hope that we can move on to the length of your name. So try to make, like we earlier said, the length of your name. We'll wait for another minute because we kind of waited for already. So what you need to do here is make a variable with your name and check if it's longer or equal to 5 letters. And if that is the case, print something. If it's not the case, print something else. So for example, this is a long name, or this is not a long name.
In the meantime, we have the question, what is the difference between elif and else?
That is a really good question. So everything, it's really hard to answer actually. So everything that is not stated in your, let me think. So you would be able to print everything. You go through the list of ifs. So it's actually if is this, if is this, if it's that. But everything else will be covered in the else. But that will not be the case with the elif. Elif is just a different one than the if. So it will not cover all the rest. And that is kind of the difference between if and else. I can show you here as well if I print some, like we did earlier. If I leave out the else, it will not do anything. So if my favorite number is bigger than 6, print bigger than 6. At this moment, you don't see anything printed, right? Because my favorite number is 4. So it is not 8. So here it goes, the program goes over, let's see if the favorite number is bigger than 8. Okay, it is not bigger than 8. Then let me check elif. If my favorite number is bigger than 6, I will print bigger than 6. Oh, but it's also not bigger than 6. At this point, it will not do anything else. But if I use else for anything, it will always execute, no matter what. If it is 3 or 2, it will execute. So that is the difference between if and else. Yeah, can go deeper, but I think this is good enough for now. I will show you the answer on this one. So actually, my name is Amy. And this was the variable that we want to check. Is bigger or equal to. Oh, my name is Amy. Oh, sorry. I put a different one. So, is a long name is my name is bigger than 5. I would print. This is not correct. Let's see, what do I do wrong? My name is Dave. Sorry, guys. This long name. So with length, you check the length of your name. So you want to assign a variable. So is long name. And then you want to check the length of your name. So at this point, it will give 4 if I would print that. And if I now want to check if this variable or if my name is a long name, or equal, it will result in false because my name is Damien and it is smaller. If I make this 4, it will result in 2. Okay. Sorry, a bit hard. Maybe this lesson is way too hard and fast, so don't worry about it. If you don't grasp anything, just go over it afterwards. Now we go to functions. The length function that you saw there was actually also a function, but a built-in function. And we'll cover that after we went over functions. So a function you can make yourself, or is already made for you, and you can use it with certain libraries that other people make for you, and you just call it. Like, for example, we use the data type string. You know what a string is. And people created that data type. And on the data type string, you can use certain functions. And functions is a block of code which only runs when you call it. So it lives somewhere, but you cannot really do anything with it unless you pass some data through it. And the data that you give to your function, maybe you're familiar with math. So normally you always see the x in your functions, defined like this. So my function most of the times it will be defined as this in math classes, and this will be your parameter. It's actually the same in programming. A function gets a name, like a variable. You assign the function to a variable, and you define it. That's how it's called. So we define a function, and here the function calculate does not have a parameter, but a function can do something for you without affecting the rest of the environment, and that is very important if you get further in programming. So a function always returns something, and if it does not return something, it is a fruitless function. So always make sure that if you create a function, you use the return statement. So basically, these are the basic needs for a function. The definition of the function itself, don't forget the brackets, the double point, really important there as well. So if I forget this one, it will result in a syntax error because I forgot the dots. Now, it is defined, but it actually does not anything. This function does not contain anything because it doesn't return anything. What I can do in a function, I can use later without affecting the rest of the environment. And every variable within that function will not affect the rest of the code. And like I said, you need to have a return statement. It can have multiple arguments, so you can actually use x, y, and z. Like with math, it's the same thing, and you can then use those in your function. Here we would not use parameters, but we just make a calculation. We assign 1 to a, 2 to b, and c is then a plus b. And we want to return something, otherwise it is a fruitless function. So we want to return c. And if we then call the function, it's not printing anything. In Jupyter, it's printing something, but in code, it will not print something because you didn't really ask for it. So in here, if you use it in Jupyter, sorry, that's very confusing. But if you use Jupyter Notebooks, the function will print something for you. If you would, for example, use it in your terminal or in an EDI, for example, so then it will not print anything. That's really good to be aware of if you start using something else in Jupyter Notebooks. Let me see. So if I use print C here, I will actually do print it 2 times. So it has an output, the function has an output, and the print statement does something. If I do not return anything here, it will still print something because of the Jupyter Notebook environment. Oh. Okay, now let's make it harder. So we actually are going to give this function parameters. So instead of defining it within the function, we are going to give this calculate function parameters. And what are our parameters? Our parameters will be A and B. A and B, because they are used in the function. Now, what will happen is that our if we would call the function, that's how we speak about function. I call a function. That means like, hey, hello function, please work for me. So that's actually what I do here. And if I do that this way, I always need to make sure this looks the same. So if I would just do this, it will complain about the parameters because it is not the same after the definition. And this is like monkey language or like child language to explain it, that it always have to be the same. But what it actually means, if you had math classes, you cannot call your function, or you cannot do anything with your function if you didn't give it something. So for example, I have a glass, and for me to do something with that glass, I also need my water from the tap. If I don't have the water from the tap, but I have my glass, and in my function, I actually say, hey, do the glass forward and wait and take it back. If I don't pull the water through the function, or give it to the function, it will also not result in a full glass. This is a really weird example. I just made it up, but that is the same with here, the definition of the function. So make sure this looks always the same. So we have to use here A and B. Define it. Let's check. Name A is not defined. Obviously, we need to define A and B. Oh, then it says B is not defined. And guess what it returns now? A plus B. 4. And then you can play around with it. So to wrap that up, here, if I, for example, define A and B as 5 and 3, and I print A and B again, I will get 8. But if I call calculate now again, oh, it's actually saying I missed 2 lines. So let's make it this way. Call A and B again, and now I have calculate without any parameters. It gives me 8. Sorry, that was a wrong example. So, and if I define A and B within this function, now it will give me 3. Because remember, functions always look at their scope. That is basically what you can do with functions and out of the function. So this we define globally. We call that globally. And this we define in the function. And then we have it locally. And then you can use multiple functions in a bigger environment. Now I'll show you the difference between a fruitless and a fruitful function. So the function that returns something that you saw before is a fruitful function. And this is not returning anything. That's a fruitless function. It will still print, but it doesn't really do anything. Always remember to use the brackets, because always you see this one. And then you know, oh, I forgot the brackets. Okay. This is going to be a bit harder because we are going to use strings now for as an argument in your function. So we will define the function print a welcome fruitful function with name. We defined the function and we gave it a parameter, which is name. We have to first define the parameter before it actually knows something. That's what you saw before as well. If I didn't use A is 1 and B is 2, it will never give, it will complain about that I didn't define A and that it didn't define B. So for example, if I didn't define name now, it will complain. Hey, name is not defined. So I need to tell my function that the parameter I'm going to use, the variable that I'm going to use, is Dani. Now, it would tell me, hey, Dani. So this is actually now, I hope, easy to answer. Why? If I would try to print this function, why is it now returning in an error? The reason it is returning an error is because it didn't define name. It expected me to give it a parameter and it says type error. Hey, I didn't get it. So what have we seen? We have syntax errors, we have seen type errors, and we have seen name errors. Syntax errors are the errors that you get when you forget, for example, to close your string. Hey, I missed something. Okay, that is a syntax error. The name error was when we didn't define a variable and we wanted to use it. And the type error is that the function is missing an argument, for example. So a type is not defined. So this function expects something extra because you defined it here. You defined that it needed a name. You defined that it needed a parameter, a variable to work. And you don't use it. Then you get a type error. Here again, fruitless function and fruitful function. You will see the difference. So actually, because this function is not returning anything, it has also a non-type class. The class is non-type, so it has no type. But because this is actually returning something, it is returning a string, it gets the class string. I'm going to speed a bit up. Well, looking at Ilona, maybe that's not a good idea as well, but we'll see. I wanted to tell you here that this, if you see this is nothing weird. These three aanhalingstekens, how do you call them? The brackets. My English here and there is really bad. Sorry for that. But 3 times this, it is a doc string. So it is normally how you would define a string, a normal string. But in a function, to explain what a function does, you always need a doc string. You always need to tell what your function is returning and what it's what variables it gets in for other people to know. Comments, like we said earlier, are the most important thing for you when you're looking at your code 6 months later. You still need it. So you still need to know what you did there. And then doc strings and comments are very useful. So doc strings you use within a function, and yeah, the comments you used with anything you actually need within your code. a small exercise. We'll take a short break, minute. Exercise here. Assign a number to the variable a and b. Create a function to multiply the numbers. And give your function a name and a description. So, well, go ahead. Remember, functions need to return stuff. It needs to have a def. You need to define your function. And here you actually don't need a parameter. You can use a parameter if you want to. You don't need to. We'll get some water. So I hope that exercises went well for you. If not, we are here to help again. So we're going to give you the answer for an exercise, the exercise if you would use the parameters and without parameters, with variables and without. So first without, so we define the function, multiply, we call it number multiply. Don't forget these ones. You can use this one, or you can leave it this. And now you see if I run the cell, it doesn't return anything yet, because I need to call my function first. And if I forget these ones, the closing bracket, I'll get this one. So then you know, oh, I forgot something. Okay, this is without the definitions of parameters. And what if we now use a parameter or two? Need to define the function again. And here I forgot A and B. Then I need to use exactly the same here. A and B, otherwise it will not work. And it will return the multiplication. So we talked about functions, but we also have built-in functions. So Python developers already, and the people that created Python already made some functions for you. And these are like normal functions, but it's just out of the box already. So you don't have to do anything for it. It's to do simple operations, to check if your code is running fine, what the type of the data, the variable is, for example, which can really be handy. We saw earlier the length function and the range function, the print function. Those are all built-in functions for you to make sure that you can execute your code way easier. The way how you, for example, can use this, see here in the Jupyter Notebook that you use built-in functions, are actually, if you're not colorblind, it is green here. So you can see, oh, I'm using a building function. Hey, max is a building function. Min is a building function. What would that do? Oh, history. So max was a building function, right? Minimum building functions, really handy for math calculations, for example. Okay, so here you check the type of your variables, which is very useful as well. The length of the A string, of the length of the list. Go to length as building function. Remember that you wanted to print the length of your name. That you can all use. So for the people that really saw, we talked about doc strings. We use a doc string here again, and we use parameters again. So this function prints stuff multiple times. This is actually already looking ready to do something with your function. You also use a for loop here. So this is a function in which you use a for loop. It is really convenient to get what this does, and maybe for this time we kind of let's remove it because maybe it's too much. That was just a doc string telling what the function did. So look at it again. We define the function, and our function needs to print stuff multiple times. So we actually want to know how often the function needs to print stuff and what the function needs to print. This is the definition of the function again. We use a variable, two of them, so two parameters. One time how often, and the other time is what it needs to print. And this is actually how it works. And then you use the for loop to determine how often for the range, and you print the text how to print. And now you can see that we didn't assign a variable first, but we just directly paste it here. So this works too. I could also do this. This is the end of the function, but everybody sees that. Here is the end of the function, and this was the doc string telling what the function did. So this function will print any given text. Paste the parameter, text, and requested amount of times. Most of the times you also would state returns number, for example, so that the person knows that if he executes this function, that it will get the same results. So here we did this because I want to show you that this is the end of the function, because we didn't return anything yet. We only printing here, and that is a fruitless function. So we could also assign 5 and use number here and string to print. Oh, sorry. This would work too. Cool. This is an example of how to use built-in functions within your built-in functions. So you actually use the print statement and the length statement in a formatted string. This looks maybe a bit scary. So this doesn't have anything to do with this. So we create a string, then we have the name list that we defined above. I saw earlier that here, I'll change this one, right? So actually, this one will not execute if you don't define it again. So if you help me here, we define a name list again. Two names. Don't forget to define a name list. It was not in the code. And then you use the length function to see what the third element is, because we start at 0, from the list, and you can define it actually in the string. Okay, let's move to methods. Methods are the same. It's actually a data type. It's the same as a string, list, or an integer. And methods are bundles of code that will define something together. So actually, a string, you can use some methods on the type class string. So for example, to determine the length of the string, you can use the function length on the type or the class string. And to do that, people wrote code. And in classes, you kind of functionality group all that code together. And that bunch of code around that class, it's called a method. And you can import that in your code and use that because other people already did that for you. And we'll go into that later. For example, if we're working with pandas. So if you create something often, like a string, so strings you use very often, integers you use very often, you wanted to make functions available for that and that it can be executed more often. And then you don't want to type that every time all over again. And then you can use those methods or create the methods and use it on top of your class. Data types or classes, or you can also call them objects, have their own specific functions and they cannot be used for other data types. So for example, I cannot use the function length for an integer because the length function is used for a string that is within that method defined. And those are functions that are actually built in. Append is a method that you can use for the class object or type list only, like I gave the example for string, and dot lower you can only use for strings, for example. We have seen strings before. We have seen lists before, and sometimes you want to do an extra item to a string. That is actually the append function. So you can use append only on a list, and then you will see here, that it will add an item, so a name, to the list. Here you see that this append function is only working for a list. So if I would use append for a string, name, It doesn't work. It says the string object has no attribute append. So the attribute append is only defined within the method string in the class. And I can only use it for that specific goal. As well with lower, I cannot do lower on a list. So, for example, the name list. Dot lower is actually making sure that the full string is going to smaller letters. So if the name list is this one, I cannot do dot lower here. And then it says the list has no attribute lower, like we did with the append. But I can do append because that has it is contributed to the list. Yeah, so methods you can use for all types of things. So here you see we can import a method, and the method that we are going to import, or the class that we're going to import, is met. And somebody wrote that for you. And that's how you can use it out of the box, but just import. It is something that comes with Python, the mod method. And then you can see how you use it. So this method, so this one, I can use as met squared. And squared is a function that is defined in the method met. You can also do sm. This will still work. Oh. But this will also work. So it actually is overwriting that this is called mod. Round is a built-in function for integers. So it's in the integer class. So how you can also see this is that we could also import, if you would take it like to the whole basics, and Python will not import anything for you. String would also be a method to import, and the integer also. But because it is so often used, it is already imported for you. Because, for example, no, never mind, that was too much information. Here you can also see how we import a method, which is datetime, and we give it another name. This one is one for you to look at home, and or you're actually already at home, but after this class, because I see it's already 9. We're getting tired, and I'm getting tired, and I want to go through with you about reading files, because that is really important, and then you can make the homework. So we'll skip this for now. Go over it yourself. Yeah. So reading files. Your computer has different kind of file, different kind of ways to interpret information. So, for example, by a text file, so a Word document that is actually a text file, we might want to be able to read in that information and do stuff with it. So, for example, you want to do transformations on your Excel file that you have prepared for us in the past lesson or past homework. And you want to do transformations on that. So a CSV is a file, and a docx is a file. And in this lesson, we're going to teach you how to do transformations on that file. Okay, so we're going to teach you to open the file and actually do something with the file. So there's 2 steps, very important. To open the file and do the actual reading. So imagine this, I have a book, the book is closed. Before I can do anything with it, I need to open it and I have to look at it. So that is kind of the same what Python needs to do. And what Python does is actually it kind of learned to read this. So we learn to read and to recognize numbers and letters. That is actually what Python did as well. So you open the book and you get your knowledge and start reading. That is something that we need to do. Because we only would use step 1, like we would only have those 2 steps together. You would not directly be able to read if the book is closed. So you always pair that together. That's very important to realize that you have to do 2 types of things to start doing something with your file. To be able to read in your file, it is very important to know where your file is. So you would use a method here, which is called OS, operating system, short for operating system. And with the OS method, you can see, if you execute this yourself, I'm in this directory. That will be the same if you would use your terminal. So if I would close my notebook and I would go to the same directory again, I'm going to show you where I am. Bootcamp Data Analytics. So I am in this directory here. And if I would want to know where I'm in now in this notebook, I do get current working directory. In your Mac system, it is BWD. Python is easier, it's current working directory. I'm not sure what it is in Windows. So then you see that your file is here. We are in the lessons file because we opened the Jupyter notebook there. We are here in the lessons, week 2. It is important to read your data. So I'm actually going to show you in this lessons, you find your folder data here. And we have multiple files here. You have one file here now, which is the Bird Life 2010, and it's .text file. You're going to read in that file. So open your book, get that one. To be able to get that, you need to open that file and read it as a file. So assign it to a variable. And this seems a bit weird, but what it's actually saying is I'm just opening the file. That is what it's saying. But remember that we really want to do 2 things. We want to open and we want to read. And with open, you do actually the same thing, because sometimes if you're reading, if you start reading, you have to open the book. And what you do afterwards, you close the book. Or you put it the other way around. But if you're going to travel, you need to close the book again. So your computer needs to close the book as well. Otherwise, it keeps on running or trying to read. And that's really bad for your memory. So what did the developers of the language of Python, they kind of said, okay, we'll make sure that you close that book. And that is actually what you do with width. So everything that is a tab away from here, below width, it will execute that code as if it is a function. And if you start typing something here again, it closed the book. So from here on, it closed. So this will be new code. If you want to open that file, you need to go to the right folder and make sure that you always keep the full name of the file. We want to read the file only, so we define it as read. And we give the file a variable. And in this case, we call it file. And on the file, this is maybe a bit confusing, but on the file, we call the method read. We want to read the file. I can also change this to F. And then change this to F. Remember the same thing that you did in the for loop. So for the file, we are going to open that file. And alt text is the variable that is actually the text when you open the book. So we'll open the book with open that file. We're opening that file. And then we say, okay, I have the book as F. We call it F. We call it the file, or we call it the book, whatever. And now I'm going to read that one. So looking into read it. Before I read, I need to tell my brain, okay, I need to focus only on that specific part. So that's actually why we assign a variable to it. So we can do multiple things to it later. You don't really need to assign a variable to it, but it helps you because now afterwards I have the variable to do something with it. Oh, don't forget your points. Here you can find that my alt text is actually the country birth expectancy. So if I would go to the text file, you will find this text. And now I want to get the first 100 characters, which was this is a character, this is a character, this is a character. Okay. I can also do print everything, right? Hey, and then you see everything. So what is important to see here is that you have a \t, and I see, what do I see else? I see a front \n. That stands for tab a new line. Tab a new line. To not get confusing. Oh, let's do 10 again. Remember again the classes that we used, so the methods that we used, the functions that we used. So for example, this is now a string. My text, alt text, is a string. If I do the type from this, I see that it is a big string. And on a string, I can do a split. Split is a function to actually make sure that the string gets splitted in multiple parts, which are then put into a list. And here I can do the split on the tab. So it will actually, for every tab, it will do a split. So here you can see here's a tab, here's a tab, here's a tab. And this one would be a new line. So I can do string.split on the tab, and then it will result in this. But I can also do split dot. And then it will result in every new line. Okay, just hang in there a bit with me, and then we're almost done. Another 2 minutes, and then you're free to go. Once again, we open the file, or we actually already opened the file, so you don't really need to do this, but just for the sake of getting here in the same flow, you could also just do all the operations that you want to do with alt text under the opening of the file. It depends on you. So we open the file, we do the operations, we call it alt text, we have it, we read it, and then we do the split. So it's actually the same, right? So here you did split on the variable, and here you do it again, but then you do it under the with open. Doesn't really matter. But if you now do the alt text printing, then it is already splitted for you. Read lines is an easy one to do that already splits the lines for you. So the string in everything that is printed with a new character. So that is the read lines. And then you can see here. This is another example on how to use a for loop and do the transformations on your new text. Study this for yourself, and we'll go over this the next time, because this is quite hard to grasp at 9 o'clock. And here we already have a list comprehension, so look at list comprehension yourself in your free time. But it is really nice concept, so we'll cover that next week because it's already a bit late. So I think we should leave it here. Look at this yourself. Make the exercises. They are quite nice for this week. If you get through it, good for you, because they are quite hard. So yeah, I think that was it.
I think now we have the last part. Just a second. I will share it. Okay.
And I have to be honest with you guys, it's pretty hard to just talk to a computer for 1/2 hour without interaction with you. It's weird. So.
Okay, I started sharing the screen. Okay, now a little bit of interaction. If everyone can go to the website mentioned here, it says www.menti.com and enter this code. We can see some magic on the screen. Let's try. Okay. I do hope the code is visible.
We have a delay.
Oh, I see it's working. It's three person. Anybody else? We have more. We have approximately 40 people. Okay. Oh, Python, good.
Concise. Oh, that's nice.
Oh, okay. More people.
Loop.
Loop is nice. Okay. 20. Oh, 23. We need more. I know it's hard because there is a limit for one word only, so you need to be very decisive.
I think this is actually really nice. I hope it's helpful for people.
Okay, 29, 30.
There's still 30 people hanging in there with us. Like, really, applause for yourself.
Okay. Oh, I'm sharing the whole screen. Okay, nice. Good. Okay, so for the next. Oh, it's still 31. Wow. Okay.
Did you have more questions, or is this?
Yeah.
Oh, more questions.
Yeah, it's really a short one. Okay, let me Oh, no. Yep. 31. Good. And then we need to go for the next slide. Next one.
I expected the delay to be really worse, actually. Okay.
I remember there was 31% for the previous slide.
Let's hope everybody is still stuck with us.
Okay, the last ones.
Coming in. Too slow. Okay.
But still, so the last person, it was 31. We missed one person on the way. Sorry. Okay, then, yeah, we got this. Okay, so the last one. This is the last, trust me.
Speed. Faster or slower?
Good question.
I think nobody said it was too fast. More people said it was too slow. So I think I'll speed up next time.
I think the next time will be pandas, so we'll see.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's really long question for the really long session. So I think we will stop here. Yeah, I think the speed the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will stop here, but this slide will be open, so feel free within the next 5 minutes to add anything you want here. And I think we're good to go for today, right?
Yeah. And yeah, guys, just also message us in Slack if you feel like feedback form is way too much, and anything that basically helps us. It's also first time for me to broadcast this to you and to actually do this online this way. So if you have any feedback, it will be helpful. Yeah, and if we need to zoom in on other stuff as well, let us know, please. Would be very helpful.
Good. And one note, you notice that the session started 30 minutes later today. The next session will be again on the normal time at 7 o'clock. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Demi, for presenting it.
Thank you.
So, yeah, see you the next time then. Bye.